Young Wavemaker. I'm super excited to introduce today's speaker, Paige Foust. Paige is in her final year at Oregon State University and is just finishing up her last spring term as an undergrad. So she's about to graduate on Saturday. So congrats to her for finishing her degree. That's amazing. She's currently working on a research manuscript that's set to be published by the end of the year. Also a huge accomplishment. And it's all about fraction feeding in marine mammals and elasmobranchs, also known as sharks and rays. This summer, she'll be taking 2 field courses at OSU, diving into species ID and conservation practices. And she just started as a research assistant in OSU's Department of Integrative Biology under Professor Mark Novak, continuing her work in diet analysis modeling in fraction feeding. And then outside of research, Paige is also an artist. She loves to draw. I actually was just looking at on her wall the beautiful little flower drawing. That's something she did. Yep, there we go. Very talented scientific illustrator as well. Maybe at the end I'll share a hermit crab drawing that Paige shared with me. So I'm beginning to see a theme in our young wave makers. They're talented scientists and artists. And so for this presentation, if you have any questions for Paige during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section below. We'll save them at the end for the end of the presentation, and I'll ask your questions then. All right, so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Paige Foust.
Thank you. Appreciate it so much. All right. Are you able to see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Cool. All right. Thank you everyone so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to talk about my last year internship project about tracking whale behavior under the stars. So first, I would like to start off with a little bit about me. And I am originally from Montana, out in a small town called Belgrade. And I did my first term there at Montana State University, where I started off with a degree in biology and ecology. Here, I was able to join the American Fisheries Society, where I was able to do stream surveys and learn a bit more about fish conservation efforts and learning how to navigate streamlines. And my family has always visited Oregon coast, especially Newport, pretty much almost every year. And I realized that I've always loved the ocean and I've been wanting to learn so much more about it. And I knew that Oregon State University was a really good school for me to start off with. So once I transferred to Oregon State University, I was able to join the Mengi Lab, which is an intertidal survey group. And they were able to take me out on a couple of surveys where I was learning how to count and do species identification along the intertidal zones. As I was becoming more familiar, they allowed me to have a much broader project where I was able to look at those sea stars that you might find out on the intertidal zone, those orange and purple ones. Those are called Pisistracoraceus, and I was learning how they were affecting the species along the rocks. And I'm holding one of the cages that we would mount to those rocks and how those sea stars would affect them if the cage was open, if it was closed, or if there was no cage present. Then I wanted to apply myself a bit more, so I applied to the Roundhouse Foundation Marine Studies program at the Innovation Lab, or known as iLab, at the Hatfield Marine Science Center. And this is where I was able to learn to become more of an engineer. I went into this internship, not knowing anything about engineering. I had to ask about what an Allen wrench was, but I soon figured out what that was. But it was really cool to like join an internship where I knew nothing about, where I can gain all sorts of new skills. Some of these tasks that I was able to do was install new Hatfield exhibits. We're able to see those at the new visitor center. I was able to build and solder drones, and I was also able to build temperature loggers. And then I was also able to join Wave out on marine boat operations and stuff. And this organization is a part of Oregon State University, and they're trying to turn waves into marine energy for the Oregon coast. And but my favorite project had to do with gray whales and stuff. And gray whales are very important along the Oregon coast. You can also see them all the way up through Cape Perpetua, all the way down to California, which is really cool. And I partnered with the Marine Mammal Institute at Hatfield Marine Science Center, along with the GEM Lab, who is also a part of the Marine Mammal Institute. And this is one of their whales, Scarlet, that they like to study. She's a gray whale, and she loves to feed on phytoplankton and other little organisms that are found along the seafloor. On a really calm day, you were able to tell a gray whale based off of their blow because it looks like a little heart, which is really cool and interesting. So if you ever find a little heart on the coast, then that is most likely a gray whale, which is really interesting. However, some challenges to studying gray whales on the coast are happen to be because of their very wide distributions. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish their blows from a wave if it's a very windy day, or sometimes the conditions just aren't right enough for us to go out on boats to monitor these whales. So, in order to do so, I also partnered with Noah and David Huff. He allowed me to get this camera, and this is a 30-pound camera. It's a thermal camera. The big circle on the bottom, that is the thermal imaging. The one on the top right is the visual, and then on the top left is a spotlight. And I was able to use this camera to look for heat signatures along the ocean to sense a whale along the ocean. And for reference, for you can put these on boats and they have a visual range, and they're sensing the temperature of the water relative to something that comes across on top of the water. So if a whale happens to come by and blows up a puff of air, the heat from the internal side heats up the blow as it goes up, and it brings it to a heat signature. That thermal camera attached to the boat is able to sense that heat signature and tell the captain on the boat that there is something along the path of the boat, so that they need to take more precaution moving forward so there's less ship strikes for the boats. Because a lot of the times when you go out, you're basically looking at black, dark water when you are navigating at night. Sometimes the conditions can get really bad if it's rainy, foggy, stormy, or just really bad waves. So it's really hard to determine what's in front of you at night if there is no thermal cameras. But if you have a thermal camera, you can look for something like this, where there's a fin of a humpback whale on the back of the whale right there, and you're able to see that yes, there is a whale in front, and you need to slow down or take proper precautions when you are taking your boat along the ocean. So there's less ship strikes, and so that you also don't damage your boat. But before I was able to go out into the field, I had to model a platform for this camera to sit on because I was just given a tripod, and so I needed to build a mount for the camera to sit on for the tripod. So I was able to use Autodesk Inventor and CAD programming to model what the stand should look like and how well it was able to hold up the camera for like weight stability. Then, once I was able to model the entire outlook for the platform, I was able to learn how to weld and manufacture and shape all of these plates. And it was really fun and interesting because, like I said before, I knew nothing about engineering going in, and I learned how to weld. I learned how to use all these very cool machines going in. And the platform turned out very well and it looked almost exactly like the model that I built, which is really cool. And each feature that you see in there is very well designed just to adapt the camera's chords and abilities. So while I was also modeling and building this, I was also testing the camera within the lab. And so this was the first picture that I was able to take with the camera. On the left, you were able to see the visual side, and then on the right, you were able to see the thermal side. I was able to make sure to set both of them up side by side so I'm able to make distinct comparisons between the two when I'm going out in the field. And I was able to calibrate what the camera was seeing and hopefully to incorporate live streaming when I went out in the field so I was able to record my observations. Now, looking at the thermal image, we can see that the more purple to black that the image is the colder the temperature is. Meanwhile, the more yellow to white is, the more hotter it is. So looking at myself, we can see that my hair and my nose is very cold relative to the rest of my head. And then, once I was able to calibrate it the right way inside the lab, I took it a bit more outside of the lab to do some further testing. This was where I was able to find out that the camera had a little bit of a personality, and every time it moved or said something, it made a little R2D2 boop noise. So when I was testing it and looking at an energy box, because that radiated pretty good heat, I was able to look at heat signatures with that. One of my coworkers would walk by, it would get bored of the electrical box, and it would move and follow my coworker around the lab. So that was just a fun little funny thing that the camera would love to do, is to follow my coworkers around the lab. So I was able to see all of their heat signatures and everything around the lab that like gave off heat. Then, once I was able to calibrate everything from the box to computer for live streaming, I was able to apply for scientific permits through Oregon State Parks. So then I was able to head off into Depot Bay and out into the field. I was outside of the whale watching center in Depot Bay, where I was able to set up all of my location, hooking it up to a 12-volt battery and making sure that the live streams were set up correctly. And once I put it on the platform, I was able to rise about 10 to 15 feet up above the ground where we were. So it had a really good vantage point of the ocean in the bay. So I was able to monitor everyone that was in the bay and any sea lions, birds, and or whales that popped up in the bay. I also had it set to a panning feature where if I was doing a different task, it was panning the bay and looking for heat signatures itself. But sadly, there were a little less whales than we would like, and every time I would go out, the whales would either be behind the rocks or in a different bay completely. So I wasn't able to completely grasp a photo of a whale for this past summer, but hopefully in the next upcoming summers, there'll be more whales and I'm able to actually fully get a photo of it on the thermal camera. But I took some other photos as reference of how well this thermal camera actually works. So here are a couple of fishing boats coming in and or out of the port. And it's able to pick up very well of all the people on the boats, and you're able to see which direction they're going and where they are relative to the camera, which is very cool and interesting. Then the camera really liked honing in on birds whenever they moved. So this is one of the seagulls that the camera really liked to follow around. And you can tell that the head of the seagull is really warm compared to the neck, as well as the body is also very warm. which is very interesting. I never knew that about birds. And then here are some kayakers that were fishing along the kelp beds. And then farther off in the distance, there is a small little fishing boat. And we realized that the camera is able to see about like roughly 2 miles off coast, which is really well, and it had great visibility at like 2 miles off coast. And then here's one last photo that I took in a black and white image of a fishing vessel coming back into port. But I wanted to show you guys some other results that could have potentially happened if I did see a whale. And this is something that could have popped up of a whale blow, where white is symbolizing more of a hot signature, and the more black the color is, it's more cold. And this is from the Toyon Research Company, and they're trying to integrate thermal camera with AI technology to help distinguish a whale blow from a wave. And by using this, they want to put it on the fronts of boats. So when fishermen or other vessels are moving at night, they or even during the day, they are able to sense that there is a whale in front of them and how they need to take proper actions to avoid that whale. And then this is going to be a video that I got from NOAA about two gray whales off the coast of California, and they are migrating south. And then here you're able to see some distinct blows coming up. Yeah. And this is what I would hope to find, hopefully, this upcoming summer. I'm able to volunteer in the lab that I used to have an internship in to hopefully get back out in the field and capture more whale videos, because I would love to learn more about whale nocturnal behavior, because we've only been able to study whales in the light, and we don't know whether that these whales are sleeping, if they're sleeping on the surface, or whether if they're just still taking periodic breaks throughout the day and night for feeding and sleeping. It's all up in the air, but we would love to know more about their behavior, and this camera is a good sign of how we are able to study these whales for in the future. And yeah, I would like to thank my mentors, Drummond Wengrove, Jacob Amos, and then Lee Torres for the amazing project, and David Huff for helping me lend out the camera. And then these are a lot of my sources for that also help me support, and as well as Keep Perpetua for supporting me for this talk. And then, yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you, Paige. That was great.
You.
Super interesting. I love, yeah, it's such a cool application of, technology that I think we're all kind of familiar with, but hadn't ever thought of using it in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for such a wonderful talk. You did a great job, and I'm looking at our Q&As, and please submit any questions you have for Paige. Um, and you can also, let's see here. If you want to submit your question in the chat, you can do it there or in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Couldn't remember what it was called for a second. Um, we're getting some comments in the chat for you. So this is, good luck this summer.
Thank
Um,
you.
and in the meantime, while if we get any questions that come through, I'll just ask you a couple questions that I have for you. So you talked a little bit about how the cameras are going to be potentially used on potentially a lot of different boats to prevent
Mhm.
boat strikes. Is that the main intention of this camera, or was it originally to understand behavior better? And if you don't know, that's okay. It just popped in my head as you were talking.
Yeah. The main point of this specific camera is more of a Coast Guard camera, so it's able to spot people that fall overboard. But NOAA is using it for bird migrations and like spotting them out and like birds out in like dense fog out in open ocean and seeing like where these birds are landing and resting. And then we wanted to see how well it's able to track a whale and stuff. Same with other companies because thermal cameras are able to sense how well the whale is, like if it's healthy or not, if you're doing a drone survey over it. Those are some studies that are popping up. And then, yeah, and then we're hoping that, like, if attaching these on the boats, that's going to lessen the amount of strikes that are happening with whales. So then the boat doesn't get damaged and you're not harming or killing a whale in the meantime.
Right. Yeah, it almost seems like a win-win for everybody because I mean,
Yeah.
people don't go out trying to, make
No.
contact with a whale. And like you said, it causes damage to a boat and
Hmm.
people don't want to do it. And then, yeah, so it seems like a great win-win kind of piece of technology that can address that issue really well. So love to see it. And I think you spoke to this in your talk, but I just wanted to emphasize something I thought was really cool about the camera is the fact that it does track the whales or the seabirds,
Hmm.
or whatever it's being applied to use. So, so when it's out on the boat, can you describe like how it would track a whale when it's out on a boat or out on Depot Bay?
Yeah, so the main purpose is like hopefully if it spots a blow, it'll send like a target or like a waypoint out to like where the whale was so we can hopefully track how far it was away from us. And then it's able to hopefully pinpoint which direction it might be moving in. And then once another blow comes up, the camera will move and like follow the whale's orientation and like where it's might be moving. But it's all like up in the air since I haven't found a whale. It's kind of like hard to like know, but
Yeah.
what the specific camera would do, but like in general, it does technically have like a tracking tendency.
Yeah, and that highlights another point. This is just the nature of science and especially field work. Things don't always
Hmm.
go the way you want it to go. I'm
Yes.
sure there were many gray whales in Depot Bay. They just didn't happen to be there the days that you had field work planned. Is that right?
Yep. I would go there one day and they wouldn't be there, and then I would leave and then they'd be there the next day. I'm just like, well, that's just rude.
So rude. Yeah, we'll have to, send out an invite to them next time so they know when to show up.
Yes, totally. I just want to take a photo.
Yeah, we just want to take your picture. That's all. We have a few questions coming through, so I'm going to ask them. Tom Kearns asks, will your work learn anything about whales getting tangled in nets or long lines?
That's a
And if you don't
very
know,
good question.
hmm,
I have no idea because thermal imaging can't really penetrate water that well, so we can only tell based off of the surface. So probably if it's at night, then no, I wouldn't assume that you're able to like sense tangling, but again, it's kind of hard just since thermal imaging is not able to penetrate water and we're just only able to see surface level.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I imagine with entanglements, yeah, it's kind of hard to, it would be hard to monitor, I guess,
Yeah.
if you don't know the the crab pot line or whatever it is already
Hmm.
there or yeah, so I could see like there could be an application but still have to work out a few things before it could be
Yeah.
applied. Yeah. uh let's see, Luke Parent asks, are there any ways that the average person can help with the research or ways to follow along with the progress of this research?
That's a great question. There are like a lot of just like nifty like thermal cameras that are cheap and that you can buy. And if you want to do your own like survey out, you're more than welcome to. And I'm pretty sure the Marine Mammal Institute would love some more input on how thermal imaging would work with whales along the coast. So that would be like a fun like little project if you're really interested in it.
That's cool. I would have never thought of that, but what a fun, little hobby to have. And provide some great data to the Marine Mammal Institute.
hmm
Um, I think Talena, our executive director at the Cape Perpetua Collaborative, I believe she sent this question. What's one thing you hope people remember after hearing your presentation?
I'm hoping to remember that whales are important on our coast and that we do need them. So we need to put more conservation efforts. And the more boats and like noise that we put out is gonna scare them away. So there's gonna be like less whales for people to see. And so being able to like spot them and like learn their behavior is very important so we can know how to conserve their population more here in Oregon and stuff because their population has been dwindling very recently and stuff. And so hopefully we're able to get the population back up and going with more conservation efforts.
Yeah, that's a great message to end on. We need to continue to take care of the whales on the coast and especially our special gray whales that visit us every summer.
hmm
Make sure they keep coming back because we love them and they're
Yeah.
very important to our ecosystem. I'll just close out the Q&A with this comment from Joan Anderson. Believe, thank you for such a valuable research project. You will do amazing things in your life and enjoy your summer learning project.
Thank
So
you so much.
I'm sure I feel like Joan is expressing how we all feel about your work and your presentations. Thank you so much, Paige. And if for all of you still online, if you're wondering, like, you're like, wow, that was so cool. I want to share Paige's work with other people. This presentation has been recorded, and I'm going to post it on the Cape Perpetua Collaborative's YouTube channel. So that will be available soon in the next week or so. I'm also working on putting the audio into a podcast format as well. So watch this space because that will be available in the near future. Um, and if people want to get in contact with you, Paige, to ask you more questions, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can reach out to me through email and stuff. I can send my email in the chat too if you
Okay,
wanna be
yeah,
reached.
that would be great. Whatever works best for you. And before we sign off, I'm just gonna let everyone know that we do have other Young Wavemaker talks coming up. We have one tentatively scheduled for June 25th, so keep an eye out on your email, and I will send out an email announcement once that's confirmed. And I think that's everything. So thank you again to everyone that attended today. Thank you again to Paige for being our Young Wavemaker today. And we hope to see you all at future Young Wavemaker talks. Have a great day. Bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Have a good one.